Right, so you may have a situation where there's a bit of background like echo. You might notice that there's a little bit of reverberation in the background. I'm not as near to my mic as I normally would be right now. This might be indicative of the setup you've got. There are effects out there that you can get. They are not free, but they are okay, which can take off some of the reverberations. For instance, I've got an RX8 D reverb here, which if I turn this on, you will probably hear that a lot of the echo has gone from the surrounding area. And that's without me buying any special stuff to put on the walls around or anything like that. It does have a slight destructive quality on the signal of my voice. So it starts to maybe sound a little wishy-washy, but there are settings that you can tweak. You could make the effect very severe if you wanted to, or you could even, this particular one, you could even enhance the reverberations. Take it the other way. Instead of cutting it out, it adds more in, if that's your bag. But I would recommend, if you're using this, a value of about 2 to 5, if just for your speech on your microphone. It depends on whether you think your reverberations are a problem or not. But certainly for me personally, the reverberations now are quite a lot too much. But the easiest way to cut out the reverberations is just bring your mouth closer to the microphone, if you can do that. Right, so that's one thing. If you're interested, that's RX8 D Reverb, which is a plugin from IzoTope. You can get it in a collection. It will cost you a fair amount of money. Right, the other thing before we get into actually doing our plugin chain is I want to give you a quick overview of some of which we're going to be doing. This is another one of the RX8 tools, which we're going to use this to actually view the compression side, because a big part of what makes your voice sound better is compression. It's where, like, you can see the volume levels as I'm talking, which are right here, which is pretty cool in this thing. Right, so this is the sound level as it is of the speech. And you can see it goes up and down quite a lot in this range here. Now, compression is where anything of any volume over a certain level, it starts to squeeze and make it smaller. So you will hear the difference in the sound, obviously, but I just want you to pay attention to the actual visuals here. So this makes a bit of sense to you. Right then, so as we bring this down, there will start to be a bit of a shadow. You'll see that the line, there's a difference between, the kind of shadow is the original signal, is basically what it is. Now I'm going to make this brutally strict now, so it's going to really destroy a lot of the sound. Release time is very little, like that. Ratio, make that 30, so there's very big differences between my original sound and what's there. What does this line represent? Is this the amount of compression? I think it is, because when I'm not speaking, it's not doing any compression. So you can look at this orange line, which is creeping in, as being, if it's at the top, that's the volume level. So when we get to a peak, what it's doing is it's going down. Like, it's reducing the volume. Now you've got attack and release. These are like the amount of time it takes the effect to kick in and how long it takes it to go away again. And the ratio is how much it compresses by. So if I was to reduce that back, if I was to reduce that back to 1, we're back to the original signal that looks like that. There's nothing there. So basically, yeah. Right, so you don't need to buy this plugin. This is one of the RX8 ones. But just to emphasize the point, as what you can see here, it starts to squash the sound a little bit. Now, bear in mind that the effect, if it goes so that your voice is above the threshold, it's not immediate that the effect just switches off. It still has to go through this release, so you've got to be careful with that. But the idea is that it squashes the sound, so it gets rid of the peaks of it, which is quite useful in some scenarios. But then what that means is, if I try and get something that's a bit like the settings that I really use, about 5, and release time of about 96, that should be good. You can start to see that it's only the peaks that is picking up now. Peter Piper picked a pick of pickled pepper. That's a good example of it working. Right, so with that crushed, what you can do now is, this is the output signal here in this box. I can then increase the volume of that to make my sound not sound so quiet anymore and sound a bit better. You don't want to make that up too much, but that's the theory of how you would use compression. Wait, is the I can't remember if the makeup is that one or whether I should probably just use that, to be honest. There we are, and now it's still in a good range. So essentially, that's the purpose of compression, is to squeeze the sound to be less loud and quiet overall, which is good for a microphone, and to then boost it a little bit so it sounds rather professional. It might not be as much, but just essentially a compressor just squeezes the sound so it's not as loud at the top end over a certain level. And that's where this threshold comes in. For instance, if I was to set this to be absolute, there's no attack and release, so basically anything above this it should be more or less squeezing shut. You can start to see that there's a steady difference in the peaks right there. So the darker grey areas are the original sound. Right, so with all that said, it's time to move on and actually get our effects chain set up. So that's going to be what we're going to do in the next video.